Welcome to Fun Palais Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Sherley, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to Fun Palais, and we are going to continue our conversation with marriage from a queer perspective. We have Collincia back with us, and also joining us, we have Kira today. And the first question we're going to start off with: why do you feel only gays have to follow the biblical law and heterosexuals can modify it to their liking, Collincia?
um, I I think it's just how the system is set up. Um, that heterosexual couplings or relationships are valued more than um, queer relationships, and the fact that people do obsess over the part of the Bible that supposedly disparages homosexual relations. And I think people oftentimes just basically it is a toxic and unhealthy way to think about relationships and couplings. And I mean, marriage is based in heterosexuality, so if you're starting off on that foot, you're basically set up to fail. I don't know why people focus solely on that, on the homosexual aspect of relationships, but alas, here we are. But yeah, heterosexuals ignore other parts of the Bible that talks about like premarital sex and all that. Unless you're like really fundamental, then you're there's a lot of shame that comes with that too. It's layered. It is layered. Yeah.
Do you feel that what we're mentally doing or subconsciously doing, not even realizing, is socializing homosexuality with sex? So that's immediately what people think about instead of the other aspects that come along with it. It's not just sex. It's a emotional connection, it's trust, it's compatibility, it's so much other things that fall under that relationship. But do you think people are just connecting it as a sexual thing in their minds and don't even realize it?
1000%. I think you know, queer people are hypersexualized. Much like black people are hypersexualized. I think anyone that's not cis, straight, and white are tend to be hypersexual or desexualized. Like research proves that Asians are usually looked at as meek and non-sexual beings. So I feel like it's one end of the spectrum or the other. But yeah, people really focus on just the sex part of homosexual couplings and not recognizing that um, there's more to it than that. There's, like you said, emotional bonds. There's bonding in similar experiences and similar views of life. It's two people. That's just basically what everything should come down to. If it's two consenting adults or two consenting people of age, it really should not matter. The state really shouldn't get involved in it. The church really shouldn't get involved with love. My 2 cents.
I no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I definitely agree from that perspective because you take my situation who been in a relationship for over 20 years, but yet not married, it won't be frowned upon as much as someone who is a homosexual in a relationship. It'll be frowned upon. I feel
Even if the homosexual is married.
it will still be frowned upon. So I totally agree. And I do, for me, from my perspective, I believe subconsciously we're connecting homosexuality and sex, and we're not even taking anything else about the relationship into consideration because marriage, you get married, You procreate, you have a family. Homosexualities, how the heck are you going to procreate? They don't think about all the other options available. So that's from my perspective. Kira, how do you feel?
I feel like I feel like it's from a Christian standpoint, I was so taught my whole life that homosexuality was wrong, and I always struggled with understanding why. It wasn't really until I became an adult and read the Bible for myself and just felt like it was the one thing that they picked out that they didn't like and that they were going to attack. Because like you're saying, the Bible says that you're not supposed to have sex before you're married. Period. There's no excuse, there's no reason, right? But then we all did it and nobody shunned us and came down on us and told us we were, put the scarlet letter on us and did all these things. So I'm like, why is it them? Um, and I struggled with it because that was all I knew. That was what I was being taught. But then I came into this industry where I was a hairstylist. There's so many gay people in this industry. And I learned so much from them. And I had genuine relationships with people that I dearly loved. And I couldn't see myself being like, your lifestyle is wrong. I don't believe you. I think that it's disgusting, or I think you're going to go to hell, XYZ. Like, I never really felt like that in my core, but that was what I was hearing. Right. So once I had these relationships with different people, right, that were gay or lesbian or trans even, I came to have a better understanding of, like Collincia is saying, like, there's more to it than just sex. It's emotional connections, it's bonds, it's all of these things that make a relationship that we're telling them is wrong. And I just don't feel that it's wrong. And my mom will probably be upset that I say that, but that's how I feel. I feel like people are going to be very surprised by who they see in heaven, because they've ostracized this group so much. I just and just to even like, before it was black people and white people couldn't get married, right? That's we all know the Loving case. So first it was that, and then it's now okay, same sex can't get married, and now okay, now you guys can get married. It's just like, why? Besides, you don't like it because the Bible is for everyone. It's not, you can't just pick and choose what you're going to believe. So if we're going to do that, do it, right? But understand that my personal feeling and my personal conviction about like the homosexuality in marriage is that that's that's their relationship, that's their love. I don't see anything wrong with it. I feel like you can love who you want to love. And if you are legally allowed to get married, you should get married because I think marriage is important. um, and I think that a lot of Christians are going to be surprised. Like I said, that's just how I feel about it.
With both of you being from the North, and I was raised in the South, I have this perception in my mind that the North is more open, accepting. There were probably a lot more openly gay people that you all went to school with, where in the South it was just like, absolutely not. Is this true?
I mean, my first exposure to someone who is gay was with women. So I didn't meet like gay men until I started working as a hairdresser.
Mm.
So even when I was in high school, my first interaction with someone who was gay was a woman, or I mean, a young lady. Well, we're in high school, we're not women yet, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then there were guys like in band who I thought might be gay, but I didn't really know, or yeah, or they weren't out yet, and I didn't ask. So that was how it was for me. How about you, Shirley? Because we're both from you went to school in Jersey too, right?
Yep, sure did. I do agree. I do believe that here in the North, it is more open as opposed to in the South. Of course, I wasn't raised in the South, so I'm not 100%, sure about that. But since you're telling us, I do believe it because, it's the
Mhm.
Southerners out there. You don't talk about that. But that goes the same way. I'm also Haitian, and that's not, as a Haitian, that's not something you discuss. Like what?
Mhm.
That's not really, that's frowned upon in the Haitian world.
Mhm.
So, I do agree. When I was growing up, I was fully aware of lesbians and gays. and it never bothered me as a child. Even as a child, I was smart enough to know that, okay, these two people love each other. But then as a child, you're stuck in this world where you're hearing that that's wrong, that's not godly, you shouldn't do
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
then in my little child mind, I'm like, so
Why?
what's so wrong about it? I'm not
Mhm.
quite understanding what you're saying is wrong. If they like each other, so freaking what? But I'm
Mhm.
also the type of person where I have no problem with that, and I think that's okay. I don't care if you're
Mhm.
lesbian, if you're gay. Everyone has preferences. You know how some people are so, like, homophobic, and it's like, "Oh, I don't want the gay person around me." Uh, sweetie, you probably are not even in their radar. Everybody has a preference. Just because they're homosexual doesn't mean they're ready to be rabbits on everyone. So, I I agree. I do believe that in the Northeast, it is more accepted in the
Mm,
South. Here, it takes a lot of courage too, because in high school, when I even look back in high school, what we're talking about 97 to 2001, I we did have some gays, but it takes a lot of courage in high
mhm.
school. You know, because some people I think were very quiet about it because you're not part of the cool club if you announce that you're gay or lesbian. You're frowned upon. It takes a special group of people to like you, and everyone's not ready for that.
It's really okay. So I had a lot of thoughts while you all were talking. Like, one, raised the same way, like homosexuality is a sin. Bought into it, which is really like sad because I'm the queer one speaking. So a lot of internalized homophobia that I had to unlearn and unpack and like work through. Um, and then I was trying to think of gay men in high school, and I can only think of one who we could actively see as struggling. Two, actually, I'm thinking of another one, who was deeply embedded in the church. His father kicked him out. This the typical like story. I assume he's thriving. He was thriving a couple of years ago. I think he's doing well. I think he might be doing seminary and helping other queer Christians like find their way and like understand that they're accepted and loved in God's eyes. But like Kira, the queer people that I knew in high school were mostly women, and two I can think of were like butch lesbians, and I don't think they had any trouble. I can't speak for them, but from what I
Mhm.
could see, they were part of the popular crowd and
Mhm.
like accepted and loved, which was really
Mhm.
interesting to me because I think if a femme person came out, it would not be the same.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I'm not really sure what. Maybe because they were athletes that made them more popular.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I just think it's interesting hierarchies that are created um, within people, like how we make exceptions for people, like um, oh, they're gay. Oh, but they're so cool. Oh, they're fine with me still. Like that kind of, you know what I'm talking about? That kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's, good you brought that topic up because 'cause you're right. The other thing I wanted to add, when I was younger, that's all I pictured a lesbian as a butch woman.
Mm,
It was some time later, still young, but I realized you could still be, like, super duper feminine and still like girls, and that's okay, and it was just like, I know saying it right now, it sounds, like, absolutely stupid and absurd, but
mhm,
that's what I pictured a lesbian, this butchy ass person that wants to look like a man, but yet likes girls, and I didn't
Mhm.
picture anything else because that's what
You weren't exposed to anything else.
exactly,
Right.
you know, and maybe because that butch girl, she could protect herself, so she
mhm,
already 'cause half the time they look scary and mean, and you didn't wanna talk to them. So maybe it was easier for them to come out where the soft looking woman, it
mm.
was just like, "I can't protect myself." I don't know.
Mm.
Okay, so there's a lot of layers to this. Again, having a lot of thoughts. I started to watch, or I finished 20s yesterday, that show on BET that Lena Waithe created. That was, I think, essentially like a fictionalized telling of her life in when she was 20s,
Mhm.
in her
I
20s in
haven't
LA.
seen it. Mhm.
Would recommend. Um,
Okay.
but one of the episode we watched yesterday, or one of the episodes we watched yesterday, was talking about um how Hattie the the main lesbian character was talking about, um talking to this other butch lesbian and talking about how, people don't see two butch people together, and it like reminded me of this conversation I had in my queer class about, how people have a really hard time in their head separating, um gender and sex, and like, um how in our minds femininity means, like femininity is what we think of makeup, like dresses,
Mhm, mhm,
nails and all that stuff, and how it confuses people, or like people can't make sense in their mind when they see two feminine women together, or two um masculine women together, or
mhm,
two masculine men. Like it doesn't make sense in their
mhm,
minds, and I think representation is important.
It's what we attach to also the color pink. I still to this day at 37, I always do a double take when I see a man wear pink. It's because it's already ingrained in my mind that way. So I'm still trying to tell my mind it's okay. We're just going to adapt to this. And this is me
Yeah.
talking in my head like this is okay. It's okay. Regardless what the world has told you, it is all right for him to wear pink. But I totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, there are a lot of behaviors and thoughts that we're taught when we're young that we need to unlearn as we become adults, because it's not helpful to us to keep constraints on these, people's way of life. Like why would it bother me that, this person wants to be with this person? It makes no difference in my day to day.
mhm. It doesn't affect your life at all.
No, I don't need to control it. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Do you?
Um, before we move, what I think to answer your question, what I perceive is we don't know how to respectfully to agree to disagree because, this is a safe haven. Everyone's going to have a different perspective and understand that's okay. That is okay. We're just bringing awareness to topics that are not discussed. People don't feel comfortable talking about them. People don't want to voice their opinions because they don't want someone not to like them. I don't want A and B not to like me if I really truly share how I feel. But
Mhm,
A and B should be respectful regardless of how you choose to voice yourself, you know?
Okay, let me pivot really quickly and correct myself, because last time we recorded, I mentioned the DOMA case, the Defense of Marriage Act, and the case was Edith Windsor versus the United States, or vice versa. And it was Edith Windsor had a longtime partner. I believe she was married in a certain state, and because it wasn't federally recognized, she had to pay estate taxes, and so they had to change the law to get it federally recognized in order for, um, uh, couples who are married in states where it was legal to have, the their rights recognized on a federal level. That's all. Yeah, and I also made this comment, and it bothers me. I misspoke about, like, the whole thing about, it seems like Christians are really, like, there is no greater sin than homosexuality, it feels like, with Christians. I feel like that's the thing that they harp on. Like,
mhm.
this is the thing that's gonna send you to hell. I feel like,
An abomination.
yeah, you can be forgiven
Yeah,
for so many things, but
mhm.
that
Not that.
homosexuality thing, yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah, because you had made that comment because of the ID show that I had watched. Remember, I told you the mother was more upset, I think, with her being homosexual than the fact that the daughter murdered her lover, and that's why you made the comment.
Yeah. Lord.
So that's the reason why Colencia was correcting herself because even watching that, I was telling her that I can tell the mother was more uncomfortable and upset with her mother being a homosexual, with her daughter, sorry, being a homosexual, than the fact that her daughter murdered another human being from the way she was speaking and the energy she was giving off. So, we're going to move on to the next question. The next question is are same-sex marriages different from heterosexual marriages when it comes to procreation?
Inherently, yes. because you know you don't have the obvious P and V
Mhm.
egg sperm thing going on.
P and V? What are you talking? Vagina and penis? Can we?
Penis and vagina in intercourse.
Yo, I love
I
it.
was trying to be delicate. My bad.
You're funny. I remember when I was side note, side conversation, I was teaching my daughter that word because for the long time we were talking. I forgot. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. And I think it was just like our special parts. I don't remember what, but when she was phasing out, I was trying to tell her it's called a vagina. She like cringed every time I say that. The word was just too mature for her. But that's what you just kind of remind. I connected the two when you're like P and V. I'm like, girl, you're going to be 30 soon.
Yes,
Vagina and
yes.
penis.
My bad. Penis and vagina sex. I am more mature than that. I was trying to be delicate. My bad. Yeah. Unless it's like, you know, a trans situation where surgery hasn't happened, all that stuff. But there's the obvious, like, now you have to bring in legal um the law and the government into procreation because you can't do it the quote unquote natural way. um, so in that case, yes, but I don't feel like queer couples more or less, you know, desire or don't desire children than a heterosexual couple or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
The like act or effort of
Yeah, having a baby is just gonna be different.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could definitely all agree that's not something also, Colintia, you don't frown on, and you definitely are 100%. You even if you don't want it, but it's something that even though the world may see it as, "Oh my gosh, 2 men having children," because I don't know if you watch Shaun T from,
Beachbody?
that's correct, and within the last 2 years, they recently had a, surrogate carry their child and they
Mm-hmm.
have 2 boys together, and he's very I totally respect him and his spouse and how they're raising the boys but, some people may look at that like that's wrong. 2 men raising and I think too that's where I guess the question is you I don't feel as though it's wrong, but why does it matter if 2 men raise a child? Why does it matter if 2 women raise a child? Just like if a single mother wants to be a single mother raising her child by choice, of course, if financials play a role and it's a healthy relationship. I'm not telling you to go have children and you're in complete poverty. So let's be mindful of what I'm trying to say. But none of that is wrong to me
Mhm.
because two heterosexual people can be in a house, the most unhealthiest situation that ever happened.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. And I know it's probably hard for not even just queer couples, but couples where perhaps the woman can't have children, to
Mhm.
see these people who just laxly like have these kids and don't care about them,
Mhm.
don't take care of them, like that kind of thing. It's a very
Mhm.
difficult um it's very difficult to witness that that's a real thing that happens in the world very often. Like recently, that woman from Iowa or Idaho or India, one of the I states, who Lori, what's her name? Vallow question mark, where she had those two kids and she went to Hawaii. I'm really bad at like summarizing.
Okay, finish. I feel like I'm getting something. Keep going.
Yeah. And she had she had two husbands that mysteriously were no longer alive. The kids were missing. The grandparents were calling, like, "Hey, we haven't heard from the kids. What's going on? Where are they?" And she's in Hawaii without the kids and saying like, "Oh, they're fine, blah blah blah." Turns out the kids are no longer with us.
Right.
And it's just like
Yeah.
you see things like that and you're like,
Girl, that's the ID premiere. I've been seeing the premiere for that, but I haven't
Yeah.
watched it. You watched it already?
No, I haven't watched it, but I know what you're talking about, yeah.
I was reading the story and like trying to keep up with what's going on, but just like things like that happen so regularly, and these queer couples that obviously love each other, are caring, willing to do anything. They're going to the state asking, "Hey, can we please have a child? We don't need a baby. We can take a teenager in. It doesn't matter, just someone like a child that needs love." And the state is like, "Oh, but you're gay." And it's even worse. The article I was reading about is gay marriage racist. It's even worse if it's interracial or the two people are people of color.
I mean,
So
that would make sense. So I have a point that I just thought of and I wanted to bring up because I also wonder how the person I'm thinking of someone and I'm okay. So imagine that there is a person who falls in love with someone of the same sex, but doesn't necessarily consider themselves a lesbian, right? You have dated men your whole life, and you finally meet this person that you connect with, that you bond with, that you have all of this great stuff with, and you fall in love with them. And you are now in a relationship with them, but you don't necessarily consider yourself like a lesbian. I wonder too how that process works for them because like is there, and this is where my ignorance will come in, like is there a specific like identity for that type of person versus calling them a lesbian?
this is what I would say, Kira. Sexuality is fluid. I don't necessarily feel like you need to have a crisis of self or faith or identity. If it's like, this is the person I'm into, great. This is the person I choose to be with.
Right, but then I also I wonder how they feel like they fit in with this community if they don't feel like they really identify as, you know, a lesbian, but it's like, I fell in love with this woman, like, I love her, I'm going to marry her, I wanna be with her, et cetera, but I'm not necessarily attracted to other women or attracted to women in that way.
I have a comment to that. So, Collincia last recording off air, we were having a conversation about that. So remember I was telling you, I do not want to spend the rest of my life with a woman. Definitely not. So to, I guess, modify what Kira you're trying to say, saying it from my perspective, I told you the girl just goes into like this laugh rant out of
Yeah,
nowhere. She
just
cracks me up.
I love that you said, I definitely don't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman. It's like, damn, Shirley, okay.
So what I was trying to get at is I'm a prime example of I wouldn't mind having a threesome or having fun with a girl, but that's what I mean where I'm not spending the rest of my life with
Mhm,
a girl. So I
mhm,
can understand where she's coming from. Now, her situation is slightly different from mine. I've never gotten that deep with a woman because to me it's always just been a fun thing. But to
mhm,
say like I want to be in a relationship with a woman as of today and even in the past, I cannot speak for the future because I don't know what the future holds for me. But that's something I don't have any interest in. But if I had to say she's struggling to say what she identifies, does she have to identify? Is it necessary for her to identify? I do believe what how did you say something is fluid? How did you verbalize it?
Sexuality is
Sexuality is fluid. So, I think she's overthinking it because she's trying to figure out where she needs to fit. Honey, you don't need to fit anywhere. If that's who you're attracted to at this point in time in your life, just be accepting of it and it is what it is.
no, I wanna say that I'm not saying that this person is overthinking it, I'm saying that I was trying to understand it from their perspective. I'm not saying in any way that this person is questioning them, I'm just wondering from their perspective, like, how would they identify, how do they feel about marriage in this way because they've fallen in love with someone who is the same sex, but they haven't traditionally dated any other same-sex people, they don't find other women attractive in that way.
So if I had to say that, then I would just say, he or she is going to, it's a she, will have to figure out where I think time will tell because maybe she found that person that's the same sex that has her changing her whole thought process about this
Mhm,
life. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to
mhm.
adapt to the situation.
mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I have heard of, um, I read maybe two or three articles where a lesbian has said they have married a man and like in love with a man, but just
Mhm.
that one man, and that's
Right,
it. They
right,
still identify as lesbians.
right.
So it happens. Like if that person still wants to identify as heterosexual or straight, but it's just this woman is just extraordinary,
Mhm.
then who am I to say, excuse me?
Right.
Um, and like I have a lot of conversations with people in the queer community about how limiting it can be within itself
Mhm.
oftentimes,
Mhm.
because people don't necessarily look or act a certain way. Like I say many times that even though I technically am a part of the queer community, I see myself on the fringes just because I don't feel like I check off the boxes
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
of what a typical queer looks like, does, all of that stuff.
Question for you guys. So, it's interesting that you bring that up as my mind here is thinking about, let me stump the girls. So, how do you think a man who's in a relationship with his wife and then his wife says, oh, let's bring someone else in, let's bring a man in? What would he identify as
Well, that's where, the whole sexuality thing is fluid.
for them at that moment, at that
Yeah.
time?
For me, if I'm married, nobody else is coming into my bed.
Gotcha.
Got
Gotcha.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, because my personal convictions about marriage, whether same sex or not, like once you are in a committed marriage, I don't feel like you need to be bringing any other people into your bedroom. That's why you got married. If you don't want to be married and you want to play and have open relationships and do all of that, then do that and don't do it under the guise of being married. That's my
got
personal feeling about it. But I think that if they're in a marriage, well, that's how I feel about it. But if they're in a relationship and they want to bring a third person in, I don't think he has to identify necessarily as anything. So I guess that answered my own question because he can, yes, I mean, he can sleep with them and do whatever and not necessarily be considered gay. But a lot of men, and especially black men, will say that if you do anything sexual with another man, you're gay, period. Like, there's no question, there's no nothing. There's no sex is fluid, nothing. It's just like, nah, you're gay, which I think is a kind of bad, not kind of, but is a bad thing uh, because that's where all the homophobia starts.
Mhm.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's an
Yeah,
episode of Insecure about that.
Yeah.
yeah. I agree because they are. And I haven't done appropriate studies and I'm not properly educated, but I do feel like the black men in the community definitely shun upon that extremely. And sometimes the one who are shunning, they're the ones who's out there.
Mhm.
I feel
Internalized
it's just their
homophobia.
mindset because
Mhm.
don't give a man too tight of a hug, or you
Mhm.
shouldn't
Mhm.
shake it. That handshake wasn't too firm.
Mhm.
What?
I'm so,
Yeah.
so grateful that my husband is not like that, especially coming from, like, a Caribbean upbringing where
I was about to say.
the Fosse boys and all of this, like, they are
Mhm.
typically a very homophobic culture, and, like, he is not like that in any way, and I was really proud. There was a time where we went on a trip to Haiti, and one of my gay friends came. And at the end of the trip, we do this thing where we thank or we thank someone, for something that they did or something we saw in them on the trip, right? And he brought my husband up to tell him thank you because he made him feel so comfortable from the first moment that he met him. Like he never made him feel like he had to scale himself back or anything like that. And he's like, you just made me feel like everyone else, like one of the guys. And I'm so grateful for that because I haven't had that many experiences with men. Um, you know, because I always feel like they think they're gonna catch it or something, like, you can't get
Yeah.
too close to a gay man because 'cause you're gonna be gay or he wants you, like, they don't half the time want you, but that really touched me because I really felt like I had someone who was, just so accepting and especially in the same space as me, us both being Christian and both kind of having that same upbringing, not necessarily with the homophobia aspect of it, but, like, just shunning homosexuals in general, right? Or not feeling like you want them close to you or whatever the case is. That solidified to me that this person or my husband was someone that was of good character, and morals. And I don't know, that really touched me that he did that because why do you feel like you need to treat them different? I'm like, it's the same thing, not the same, but like how white people treated black people. Like, you guys want to have all this. Don't even get me started, but it's like you can't just move from group to group to group. Like, you just want to marginalize some group. Like, every 10 years, you want to choose someone different. And it's just like, no, no. God loves us all unconditionally. However you choose to use your life, to live your life is your choice. Period.
Yep, I agree. I wanted to also bring something up while we're on the topic of sex. So I've always categorized, and this is a foundation for me. There are 6 important characteristics that a relationship needs to have, and that's trust, respect, consistency, communication, loyalty, and sacrifice. All those 6 need to be of um, they need to be equal in your relationship from both sides in order to have a healthy foundation. There are times in your life where one may be greater than the other, or, your husband or your other one partner might communicate better than the other. One partner might, uh, or sometimes you might feel like you're making all the sacrifices and the other partner may not, but it needs to be equal. So that goes what I want to go into my question is, what is more important to you guys? Communication, or I've said the 6 characteristics, but is they important, or is sex important, or should I add sex onto there? Because I want to see what you guys think. I'll go after you go. Let's start with you, Kira. Bopping your
Yeah,
head.
she's feeling. She's making faces. She's moving around.
Communication is more important than sex. I would really love to hear the explanation for that, because I
I got you.
I totally don't understand that. Now, maybe I would be more clear if I had the explanation as why someone would believe communication is more important than sex. But I don't think so. I think sex is more important than communication. I think sex connects you in a different way. It literally like bonds you emotionally. And when you're not having sex, that's when all the discord starts. That's when all of the lack of communication starts and all of the other problems happen when you aren't having sex. When you are, yeah, that's all I have to say.
So this is coming from not having been in any kind of level of commitment that the either of two of you have had, but I'm saying you need communication. You need good communication in order for good sex.
I mean, but
The
it's not,
two are very important.
I don't think it's more important. I don't think it's more important.
I don't know. Like, it's okay. This is coming from a person who also very much values honesty and like openness in just like any romantic platonic relationship that I have. Like, I need you to be open and honest. And I feel like that is what bonds you closely in my mind.
Okay, but you know what? That is correct, because I'm speaking of in the context of marriage or in a relationship. Right? Because when you're meeting someone, of course, communication is more important than sex, because you're talking to them before you even sleep with them most times, if you're trying to develop a relationship with this person. So you're trying to connect with them emotionally and bond with them, which is why that part of communication is important. But once you're actually in the relationship, you're going to tell me that communication is more important than having sex?
And not more important.
I
You
no.
need the communication even during sex to make sure that the sex is good. So are we saying sex period? If the sex is terrible, are you still saying that's more important than the communication? Because communication would solve that terrible sex problem.
I don't have terrible
In
sex.
theory.
I wouldn't have married someone if I had terrible sex with them. But y if you're having terrible sex, yes, you're gonna talk about it. But or you just keep having more sex until you figure it out. So, I Shirley, no. Communication more important than sex? I feel like I sound like a nympho or something, but I'm not.
What is your sign?
I'm a Gemini.
Okay.
Shirley,
Got
tell me, please.
I was just
Really agrees with
listening
you.
to what you guys were saying.
Break it down to me, because if you tell me communication is more important than sex, I'm getting off.
No, not at all. I am not the one that thinks about that. It's my other guest that made the comment that communication is more important than sex to her. So we'll have to, if you guys are interested, listen to the episode 14 and 15, where marriage from I guess, kind of a relationship kind of perspective, single woman. She classifies herself as a single woman because she's not married. But
Right.
anyway,
But was that from the perspective of being in a relationship, like a long-term relationship, or being a single person dating?
so we're going to go into that in part two, where we haven't done part two yet. We
Okay.
haven't done part
Mm.
two yet. So when we do part two, she's going to elaborate more on
Listen.
why she feels communication is more important than sex for me.
Well, my view is from a single woman dating, and I feel like communication is more important to me than sex right
Okay.
now. Maybe that'll
Uh,
change. I'll update you. But right now, I feel like communication is so much more valuable than conjugate.
If we're having issues and then you have sex with me, then I wanna talk to you more after.
Okay. Okay.
so, okay, I understand your perspective. Colencia, have you had sex?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't tell my parents.
They might run upon this podcast,
Like,
so
"Are you
it's
a
out
virgin?"
there now.
Like, "No."
I had to ask, like, she could have just said, "I don't choose to divulge." So, this is raw conversation, so I had to ask.
No, that seems relevant. Yes, I have had
Okay,
relations of
gotcha.
a
So
physical
from my
nature.
perspective, I do feel that it needs to be of good balance, but the sex needs to fit. And I say that because I am also one that believes in sex before marriage. Uh, I need to have sex with you before I get married, because if I am going to be going down this road with you and we are definitely thinking about being together long term, it is important that sexually we connect, because if we don't connect, I need to go. Because if I don't connect with how you kiss me, or if I don't connect with how we cuddle, think simple things like that, and I'm not even getting all into detail,
Mhm.
that is hard to it's not something you fix. You can't fix sexual compatibility. And when I try to say that, sometimes you just to have sex, but sexual compatibility is a whole nother uh it's a whole nother thing for me. And if the sexual compatibility was there, if it's there, that is very important to me, because that leads into the other 6 characteristics that I say. The communication is gonna be healthier, the trust is going to be, well, we'll take out the other ones. The communication is going the the communication is going to be healthier, but sex is more important to me than communication. Why? Because
I don't it I feel like it really bonds you in a way with this person. But here's the other part of that. I regret having sex with, and I don't wanna say so many and sound like I'm, like, was out here sleeping around, but I do regret sleeping with, a lot of previous boyfriends that I did, because what happened was I was bonded to them in this way. I have this soul tie with them in this way that is so negative. All of their negative stuff jumped on me, I feel like, and it took me a long time to get rid of that. So, in a sense, it's like, I wish I didn't have to do that, right? Because I also feel like I knew that we weren't gonna be compatible for long term for many of those relationships anyway, and I still chose to sleep with them.
okay, so that's interesting. You still feel as though you have soul ties to your
Well,
exes?
not anymore. I mean, I feel like I had to pray to break away those soul ties. I think soul ties are a real thing. I really think sex bonds you to another person, for sure.
Interesting. I've been with other people other than Khalif, and I don't feel any bond at all whatsoever.
This is the part of, what your belief system is, right? And how you are affected by sex. Surely, I have told you, you have always thought like, "Oh, Kira, I feel like you're that person who, will only sleep with your boyfriend and, be in a relationship, da, da, da." And I was like, Shirley, there was a time, okay, where Kira was had slept with 3 people in one day, okay? One day. And I was like, "Kira, this is not the life you're trying to live." I'm being
I
I'm
can't-
I'm being so honest and transparent with you right now because I was sleeping with people searching for something else, not necessarily like relationship and compatibility, but because I had sex with them and I didn't know them well, that bonded me to them in a way that I feel like I took on their negative things. And so then when I was ready to have sex with someone that I loved and wanted to be with and all of this stuff, I had all of this baggage from these past sexual encounters that I had brought to this relationship. So the whole thing about premarital sex is like it can hurt you in a way, which is why we don't the Bible says like we don't want you to do it, right? And I feel like I understood that after I had been through these experiences. So for me, like sex, I could have sex and not have any kind of emotional attachment to you whatsoever. I could see you one day, not see you in 6 months, have sex with you again, whatever. Like that was how I was living my life. But once I was with someone who I like really loved and wanted to be like in a relationship with, sex bonded us in a way that was much more positive. If this makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense.
It's fascinating. That's all I have to say.
I can totally make sense of what she's saying because with me, that's how I connected with my partner with sex. The other people that I've been with, I was able just to turn that off because if the sex wasn't good, I was that girl that I'm not calling you, I'm not contacting you. A lot of times I'm beating myself, girl, you know you shouldn't have done that because that shit was lousy.
Mhm. And I've been
Um,
there too. Like, why did I even do that? It wasn't even worth it. And now I'm connected to you. That's how I feel. I mean, that's just how I feel. I know it's
I
kinda
have a
it might be
question.
hard to understand.
Is that coming from a place of guilt? Do you feel?
The, like, bond, like the soul
You-
tie?
yeah, to feel like you're being bonded. Do you feel like that's coming from a place of guilt?
It
'Cause you
c
said I shouldn't have done that, and so I'm wondering, like,
well, no, because not all of them I felt like that. But I like I said, I felt like that more later on once I was, like, ready to get married and I realized, like, I had all this baggage from these relationships. I think I it might come from a place of guilt because I did feel like I shouldn't have been having sex, right? Because I wasn't married, I shouldn't have been having sex, so I felt some kinda way about that. I was celibate for a long time too before I met my husband. Um, and so it's always been a struggle for me just in general. It was either like one end of the spectrum, like I was having all this sex or I wasn't doing it at all. And then I think the people that I chose to sleep with were not always the best choices. So I guess, yes, it might be coming from a place of guilt, but also in the sense of like, I definitely feel like those things that were negative about them, I carried into other relationships because I felt bonded to them. And that that could also just be a mind thing because that's how I
mhm,
feel, right? Like, up here, I feel
yeah,
like, "Okay, he has all these bad traits that I don't like, and now I'm acting like that."
mhm. I think it's interesting. I think we all three have different views on sex. And Shirley, I want to challenge you on the the woman thing because I think that's fascinating. I do
where
think people can be sexually about you being sexually attracted to women, but
Mhm.
like never wanting to be in a relationship with them. Me
Oh,
personally, my relationship to sex is I am more so interested in someone's intellectual capacity or like their emotional intelligence. And if you don't have that, I can't do it. Like it's very like our generation is known for like the easy sex or like the ability to ethically hoe around as they say now,
Mhm,
like, but I don't find myself part of that simply because I need so much information from someone. Like I ask my friends who do participate in hookup culture, like um how do you know this random isn't going to murder you afterward when you go, meet them? And they're like,
mhm,
oh well, we meet in public first and we get a feeler. And I'm just like, I've seen too much Law and Order SVU and all of these crime shows to think that that's chill, like that's a good indicator of what a good person is. And this isn't coming from a place of judgment. If you can
mhm,
do it safely, go get
Mhm.
yours. But it's just like me personally, I feel like I need so much more than just, this person's kind of cute. And I even have a hard time saying like this person's kind of cute unless I like know about them and who they
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
and all that stuff.
So I guess based off of what you're saying, communication is important to you at first, but if you were in a long-term relationship where I can agree with that, there needs to be a good connection there that doesn't involve sex because I think the sex is the final package deal where if everything else is fitting, now we have this last thing we need to do to see if that fits because if that doesn't fit, then to me, that's an issue. I mean, and I maybe someone who's into sex education may see, well, you can train your partner, you can
I was
tell
gonna
them
say,
how you like things and stuff. And yeah, but I think I'm also thinking of about it. Penises come in different sizes. So
so, so you need the instinctual like this has to work or not. I mean,
yeah.
I'm telling you, I feel like size doesn't matter if the person who is controlling knows what they're doing. Okay, fine. Look at me. Yep, that's fine.
Size does matter. Size does matter. Size does matter. Size does
My
matter.
bad.
They come in different sizes, I guess, without us becoming rated R here. They come in different sizes, Calencia.
Very different sizes.
So
And
I
if
apologize.
and if
There may be larger ones and
what am I doing
smaller
with this, Colencia?
Not
That
much.
might be.
Nothing. Check me.
Also, this is very a heteronormative way of thinking of sex. If you're having penis and vagina sex,
Right.
I understand, but there are other.
Well, that is totally true. But because
Here we are excluding Calencia because she's looking at it from a different perspective, and
right,
Kira
Yeah,
and I are thinking about it one way, and you're right.
this is very true, Colencia.
I will be honest with you, Calencia. I can speak. You may have someone that doesn't connect with you, even in that perspective. You
this is
kind of be
all
like,
true. I know. I know. There's sex is just it's
look at Kira's face. You guys would be cracking up right now. Kira's like, she looks terrified and scared.
Like, a little I no. Mm-mm. I'm sorry. That's just the hetero part of me that I can't do it like Colencia said. I've tried and it's not
Wait, what have you tried? We need to rewind. She said, I've tried. What have you tried?
like, I've slept with someone who had a small penis.
Oh, yeah. That
I
that
feel like,
that's just
"Oh my god, yeah, no." Like, it's
no, I totally agree with you.
I'm sorry, like,
Too small, and I've done too big.
same. Okay, I don't wanna sound like I've, like, sleep around all the like, okay, I
Kira, it's not about
I
sleeping
was going
around.
to say
It's about
I personally, Kira, am not judging you. You
okay.
live your best life. Yes.
but
So my
here's
sisters
the
are gonna be like, "What the hell, Kira? Like, what are you doing?"
this is gonna open up a new world for them. But Kira, I respect what both of us have done because you know why? To me, it educates me. I was working with a woman who had only been with her husband,
Hmm,
never anybody else. She got to the point where, first of all, she didn't know anybody else, so she had nothing else to compare it to. And her marriage was set up not in a loving way and not in a good way.
mhm.
It got to the point where she had to take Ativan just to sleep with the guy.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Like, really? That's where I feel like communication, even if they're having great communication, but if you have to drug yourself to sleep with someone, come on, like,
No,
that's dead, let it go.
oh,
But,
that's so sad.
Kira, we are mature women that we've test the waters.
Yes,
I've
I have.
had
I mean, I'm 34 years old, like, yeah, I have
to me, it's important because I know the one I have, I'm happy with. I'm happy with what I'm getting. I'm
yeah,
very happy with what I'm getting because I've seen both sides of the spectrum, too small and too big, and no, I'm good. I'm
mhm,
good. And I think that's one reason I'm really truly able to comfortably say, I know I'm not going to step out on what I have because it's not about the sex for me when it comes to cheating. Now It's not about that. I'm happy with the sex that I'm getting at home. I don't need to step out and get it somewhere else, but
Mhm.
that's my viewpoint. Calencia, from your
Right.
perspective, which you made the big comment about, we're looking at it from one part of the spectrum, even
Mhm.
if it's a woman, even that compatibility, Calencia, needs to be there. Even that, even though it's not penis and vagina, two vaginas, but even then, like it needs to make sense. Like there needs to be a connection there as well, even though you're not
I
being having
agree.
something inserted in you, but even that connection needs to be there because you can't tell me you ever like
It's just like someone doesn't know what to do with their body, and if you
Yeah.
don't have the right equipment, meaning, like you're saying, it's not big, it's too big or it's too small, you don't know how to use your body to complement mine, it is not gonna work, period, even
Yeah,
if
that's what I
it's
was
same
saying
sex.
earlier.
Yeah. No, no,
And you
no.
all like side-eyed me.
No, we know because you were saying basically like because this is just we're just talking about penis vagina sex, but like even in um male gay
Same
men sex.
equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Um you can still have the same issues that we're having because
100%.
too small, too big, not knowing how to use it, and it's not enjoyable for me. So no matter how much I try to teach you, I'm not trying to give you a whole lesson on that. It's not gonna work. So, thanks. No thanks.
Ah, I got you. So we're gonna move on to the next since we've like pretty much really covered the
And Kira
communication
has some
and sex.
faces.
So
I
the
gotta be a fly on the wall for that episode for sure, 'cause I just
interested in hearing what she says. Well, I'll let you know and I'll let you tune in and you can hear what she has to say about it. So, Calencia, what do you have to
Hi.
say to religious people that are against homosexuality?
I wish I had some poignant thing to say that's really succinct and really drives the point home. But I will say that I feel like the most important thing of Jesus's teachings is love. And if you can't love thy neighbor as thyself, but maybe you hate yourself, and so it's easy to project that onto other people. I would say to them, there's a better way to devote your time and energy. And I don't think that this is a fight that you should spend your time on. I think you should spend your time loving people. I mean, I
mhm,
I think that's the best thing I can say. I don't I feel like people waste their time so much negative energy, pour so much negative energy in trying to change people and bend them to their will instead of just accepting people as they are and seeing, oh, this person isn't actively causing harm to anyone. What they're doing is just loving another human in this life because we need that. I know this is sounding really preachy and very like sobby, but there's so much hate and so much discourse, like not discourse, but like so much discontent in this world, and it's only getting worse. Why are we spending our time trying to change people to make them who we are, what we think is acceptable, instead of seeing them for who they are and saying, oh, they aren't harming kids, they aren't causing, does any sort of disaster or any sort of like, they're not ruining the climate or telling women what to do with their bodies or like in any way harming my day to day. Why am I expending my energy on this instead of expending my energy on those kids in at the border who are locked up in cages separated from their families or stuff like that. There are definitely more practical ways to spend your time.
Mhm. I agree. They don't know how to allow it to fit into their mind, but and I don't like to blame things on their upbringing, but most likely it probably has a big role to play in that decision.
Yeah, but look at us. Look what we did. Look
mhm,
outside. I mean, I will say two things: separation of church and state.
mhm,
One, that's what this country is supposed to be built on. Two, um, especially with Trump's election, I realize how much I live in an echo chamber. Oftentimes, we as people surround ourselves with people who reflect our views and echo back to us, like, I can say this, and Kira would say, yeah, girl, I feel you. I know what you're going through, blah, blah, blah. There isn't much of a challenge in our mindsets as to meeting different people outside our homes or anything like that. I think flight attending, all of us doing that does help. It does get
Mhm.
us to see different parts of the world and different people. But I feel like easily we are dismissive of people. I will speak for my let me speak for myself. Easily I am dismissive of people. I know if someone says something like, I can't think of anything right now, but there are certain like things that would automatically make me say, I won't engage with this person. This person's not my friend. I'm not going to make an excuse for Trump because that's just a no. At this point, that's just an absolute no. 4 years later, that's an absolute no. But at the beginning, I was like, okay, let me see why this person would think this is okay. Let me try. And then
Mhm.
when things just like there was no improvement, I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. But I feel like we as people live in communities where people reflect our own views, reflect our um, values, and so we don't understand. Like, it does not compute. Like, it
Mhm.
still does not compute to me how someone could vote for Trump. Like, that is a mindset that I don't understand. And I remember Sarah Silverman created a show because she is one of those like um, she's a comedian, a liberal, all of that stuff, and she was not understanding how people could vote for Trump. So she did a thing where she went across the country, went into people's homes, and like asked. And this was at the beginning, but it's just like something like that was really important for me to see because I needed to understand in order to better get like a whole rounded view of what's going on. Um, that was just a long rant, but yeah, separation of church and state, and it's important to open your mind.
I have a question, Shirley, for Clencia. I don't remember when you told me that you were, I'm gonna say sexually fluid, right?
Okay, yeah.
I don't remember this being like a deep conversation or you like coming out to me. I feel like it was very casual and I was like, "Oh, okay." Right? But I wonder if you remember when you told me, like, if you felt any kind of way before you told me or you decided you were gonna tell me or because I feel like I make it very clear, like, that I'm Christian and, like, there are certain things that I'm just not going to do, right? So I live my life in a certain way, and then I think that people tend to either make themselves smaller around me or they pull back and don't share out of fear that I'm going to be, like, judgmental towards them. So, do you remember that moment, like, when you shared that with me or, like, what led up to it?
Oh.
Or it was just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna tell her this because."
That is a very good question, and I do not remember,
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't either.
Uh,
I mean,
I
I
don't.
remember you telling me, but I don't remember. But I remember being like, "Oh, she told me." Like, "That's great because she feels safe." Like, that's how I remember feeling.
Oh, oh, that's sweet. I oddly remember when I told Ivory because I remember in the crash pad when we were like living in the same like apartment building, I
Mhm.
had a big gay ice cream sticker on my laptop. And she's
Mm.
like, "Oh, you're about that life?" And I was like, "I am about that life."
Okay.
But I don't. It might have been a similar moment with you where you might have mentioned something, and I've been like, "Oh yeah, women, thumbs up," or something. I
Yeah, I
really
don't
don't
remember.
remember.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, can I say something to the religious people too? I mean, I'm not gay, but I feel like I should say something too.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm Christian, like, everyone knows that, and I feel like, um Christians can be some of the most judgmental people around, and I definitely feel like your job on this earth is to project love, to project the love of Christ, and we know that there's nothing that can separate us from God's love. So the way that someone's living their life is none of your business. You can mind your own business and worry about just loving them regardless of how you feel about it. If you believe that homosexuality is a sin, so is premarital sex, so is lying, so is cheating, so is stealing, so is all of these things. So my thing that I would say to you is to love them anyway, if that's your viewpoint on it. That's not necessarily mine, but yeah, like they're not doing anything that's causing you any harm, and you treating them so nasty and being so hateful towards them is not going to bring them closer to Christ.
That is the truth. That is the truth. And that's why a lot of people have left the church.
Before I ask you the last question, you said you wanted to challenge my "I don't ever want to be with women." What was the
Yes.
challenge?
Yes, I'm curious. Do you think so? Where does that come from? Is it your mindset that you are? I mean, I don't want to get deeply psychological. Is your mindset like I'm supposed to be with a man? This is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm, or have you allowed yourself to think of the possibility of I could be emotionally attracted to this person or intellectually attracted or anything like that?
So I don't want to put it in the category of mindset because no, if I wanted to be with a woman, it wouldn't be an issue for me because I think I've
Mm,
always been um even my thinking has always been weird, and I don't know if I've shared it, I think, with you, Kira, I don't know, even, like, I was totally okay with not being married and having children. I
Mhm.
believe in sex before marriage. Even though I classify myself as Christian, I'm a modified Christian, so to say. What the heck does that even mean? Who the freak knows? But I'm like a modified Christian because I'm doing things that of not of the norm.
Mhm.
So being with another woman would not be a problem for me. It's just it's kinda I'm gonna classify it as simple as I can. It's kinda like, it's not what I want to be with. It's what I wouldn't mind playing around with.
Because we all have preferences too.
We do have preferences. I think my preference, if you wanna look at it from a preference standpoint, I get the best of both worlds from a man. I still want penis.
Mhm.
okay.
So, if I had to say it in a joking way, yes, but if I had to say it in a more, is it a mind thing? I don't think it's a mind thing. It's just I am truly more attracted to men and spending my life with a man and being with a man. And I do think women are attractive, but in a not in a sexual being. With the sexual part, I think it's more of it if it happened in my younger years.
Mhm.
And now
Mhm.
in my adult life, it's not something that's of interest to me and it's not something that happens in our relationship. So this was in my younger years. Even till this day, I think women are very attractive.
Mhm.
But as I say, we all have sexual preferences. I don't just bounce like a rabbit for every girl I see. I'm definitely going to compliment a girl from being attractive, but the sexual connection, I have to first talk with you, chat with you. It has to be something we build up before I just do something sexual with her, even when I was younger. But when it comes to having a relationship with a woman, that's something I wouldn't want to have a long-term relationship with. Now, having a friends with benefits, if I was single, that's different. But do I want to marry you, spend the rest of my life with you, and grow old with you? No, I want to do that with a man.
Mhm.
But I can play around with you. We can live together. We can have fun. In my younger years, that was different. But to to be in a relationship long term and getting married, I'm not interested in doing that with you. And that's just how I look at it. So I guess I don't even know, how would you classify that? Because what category do they put the ones that think like me in? You know what? We go under the bisexual, but I don't even identify myself as a bisexual because I see it as sexual fun.
Mhm.
Mhm. So that's a great question. I think it's looked at pejoratively, not in a very great way. Um,
'Cause I almost feel like that I feel like sorry to cut you off, Clancy, but I almost feel like that ties into the whole hypersexualizing this community anyway, because it's like, "Oh, I just want them for my fun. I don't really want them for
yeah,
the"
a Taurus.
and I don't mean to say it like that, Shirley, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
I totally understand. I totally get where you're coming from, Kira. I don't take it personally at all, but that's always how I viewed it.
Yeah.
Even as a little girl, I knew I don't want to marry a woman. I don't want to be with a woman.
Mhm.
I want to play around with a
Mhm,
woman. I
mhm,
want to just have fun with you. We could be cool friends, and I call you like just like you would call a guy, like, "Hey, girl,
mhm,
what you doing? You coming over?" Boop. Okay, let's go.
mhm.
But
Let me ask
family
this:
life, no, I don't want no family life with you.
was it always clear between the two of you? Like there was an understanding, like this isn't going anywhere.
Oh, I think I you mean for the person that I was with?
Hmm.
Oh, they knew. They knew.
Oh,
We
okay.
knew together, we knew it was just a fun thing. I think
Oh, okay.
because I've dealt with women with the same mindset, so I think that's the reason
Mm.
why it never went any further than it need to go. If I actually she was actually a lesbian, I don't think that would be healthy for her or me
Yeah, I was
because
about to say. Okay, I'm glad that you understand that.
I don't want feelings. I don't want feelings. And I think
Okay.
that's why there was never really truly any feeling. It was more, sexual, it wasn't, I shouldn't say feeling because I still respect them. I still have love for them and we could still respectfully say hi, but it wasn't a romantic.
Yeah, I think we understand what you're saying
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
Yeah.
you even having to. Yeah, I think
Articulate
Okay.
it.
we're
I
all
get it.
clear. I think we're
Okay,
clear.
good.
Yeah.
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 I just
So
find
we're
it
gonna go.
fascinating.
Why, you've never met my kind?
No, definitely I have. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
100% have. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, but just never had like an in-depth discussion about, how that works for you. Yeah.
So the last question as we get ready to wrap up is, what advice do you have to offer for same-sex marriage couples who are either already married, interested in getting married? What do you have to tell them about how society is going to make them feel? What advice do you want to give to them?
I would say do it for yourself if you want to, but do not feel like the state has to validate your relationship
Mm.
or your love. That's how I feel. Kira controversial, but in the first part, I was talking about how I view marriage from like a legal standpoint, like as a business thing. Like if you need something to get done, you get married. If you need health insurance, you need immigration, you need any of that kind of stuff, get married. But otherwise, I'm just like, I don't feel like that validation is necessary. But I feel for queer couples, because there's so much anti-gay media or anti-gay bias, that having that, being able to marry, kind of boosts that exposure, boosts that like equality thing. But it gets more complicated when you think about intersectionality, and I don't know if we need to get into that, but like race and gender and stuff like that, I still think there's like two white men trying to adopt a child as opposed to, you know a Latina lesbian couple or something like that. I
Mhm.
still feel like there's still
Always.
disparaging
Yeah, for sure.
forces at bay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I feel like in terms of trying to progress the agenda being like equality further,
Mhm.
this is necessary.
Mhm.
Gotcha. I totally respect that, and
Yeah,
I
me too.
agree.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna go with a brief recap today before we end, trying to make it quick with the recap. So the first question we had asked was, why do you feel gays have to follow the biblical law and heterosexuals can modify to their liking? Just to recap that, we all agreed that, it shouldn't be that way, but it is. Calencia did explain her viewpoint. Kira and I explained our viewpoint. And you shouldn't have to feel as though you have to follow any law, regardless if you're heterosexual or homosexual. You should live life to the best of your liking. It doesn't have to, you don't have to get approval or permission from anyone to live your life to the best of your abilities. We have one life and we need to make the best of it. The other question was, what do you have to say to religious people that are against homosexuality? Calencia offered the advice of, we just have to learn how to wholeheartedly love people, even if it's hard to accept or understand things from their viewpoint, regardless what it may be. And as humans, we have a challenge accepting something that doesn't fit in our box. And it puts us probably in a very uncomfortable situation to accept anything else. As Calencia has says, we attract ourselves to people that all agree the same. So once we step outside of that, it's kind of like fear zone. I don't want to be there. So we have to learn to wholeheartedly love people. Our same sex marriage is different from heterosexual marriages when it comes to procreation. So Calencia brought up a great point when it comes to vagina, when it comes to penis. Yes, they are, because we all know what homosexual relationships involve. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's different. But in my eyes, and I think we'll all agree, it's not any different, as Calencia has says, from a woman that might have difficulty being able to get pregnant. What do you have to do? You have to step outside the norm.
Mhm.
So why do we create this big thing in our head as though, oh my gosh, two men, two women, how are you going to have children? What are you going to do? They're going to do it just as A heterosexual would do it if there were issues that came into place, you know? With a homosexual relationship, there are no issues. These are just the avenues they have to go. As I mentioned, and I will put Sean T's information down, his Instagram, great guy from New Jersey. I think about 2 years ago, him and his partner, have 2 twins. Sweetest family ever.
There's
So,
also Neil Patrick Harris that's doing that.
really? Oh, okay. Neil Patrick Harris. So I'll find that out
Yeah.
and put that down there too, or if he has an Instagram or something.
And
So
Karamo from Queer Eye also raised.
look at this. And there's, of course, there's a whole lot more around there. So I'm all in support and I
Melissa
love
Etheridge
to
back in the
see
day.
them. Oh yeah, we all know Melissa. Melissa's so old. That's our time. Oh, um, but but yes, so we're all in agreement with, is there a difference? No, there really isn't.
Mhm.
It should be okay. There shouldn't be a problem. And what advice do we have to offer to same-sex marriage couples? Just do it. Okay? Don't be fearful, just do it. That's it. We don't want to overcomplicate it, because just do whatever it is you want to do in a healthy way. Okay? Healthy, healthy. Nothing crazy. Don't murder anybody, don't kill anybody. Just do whatever you want to do in a healthy way. But as we wrap up part 2, Collincia, we want to thank you for being our guest and having a wonderful conversation, enlightening us all.
Thank you for having
Uh,
me.
Not a problem, not a problem. We enjoyed having you. It was good convo, good convo. Um, as always, thank you for listening. Hopefully, this definitely empowered you and helped you today. And I always want to leave saying, love yourself, be yourself, and voice yourself, and have a
Yes.
great, great day. Thanks for tuning in to Fanpale Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.